I care about being a good shooter, and I think Beretta cares that I care about being a good shooter. Now, if you want free stuff and you want to test different products, if I were looking for different things, I would say the best way would be like review guns. Be honest and knowledgeable in your review of guns. And I bet you could grow an account like crazy, like the gun tubers, So I think sponsorships in that sense of like product, yeah, definitely that. But I know that like having a big following, people are advertising, so they'll pay people to advertise.
Welcome to the Firearms Nation podcast, and thank you everyone who's joining us tonight. As always, this is a live show, but you can get the edited and recorded version on the audio podcast every week on the Firearms Nation podcast. And of course, this will be up on the Firearms Nation YouTube page if you so desire to see the replay. Tonight, I'm joined by, and I hope I don't butcher her last name. I want to say is Jessica Mauro, and she's going to let me know if I said it wrong, who is now a member of Team Beretta, which is very cool because JJ Ricazza, who's been on the show many times, and I know him very well, and he's a good friend, is also on Team Beretta, shoots Beretta. And which is also interesting, too, is that they have another Jessica Hook, who a long time ago was on the show, many years ago. And she's kind of gone off in her own direction, but she's part of Team Beretta as well. So we're going to find out a lot about what it's like to be a sponsored shooter, what it entails. And of course, in the shooting sports, it's great when we have more female athletes participating. So we'll hear about that side of it as well. So without further ado, let me bring on Jessica. Jessica? How are you? No, is it
Hey.
Jessica or is it Jess?
Jess. Yeah, Jess.
Okay. Okay, Jess. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting that, and I mentioned that just now, that Team Beretta has two Jessicas.
Yep.
Was that kind of an awkward thing when it happened?
So I was actually friends with Jess before I joined Team Beretta, and that's kind of one of the ways I got introduced to them. Was I met Jess at Nationals. So yeah, her and one of our friends were looking for a last minute place to stay. And I was like, oh, you can crash with us, but we have to share a room. And then Jess and I just hit it off, and we've been friends since. So.
And now if we're really looking into it, and I don't have anybody from Team Beretta here, but you got Jessica and JJ. I think there's a definite theme. If you have a first name that starts with a J, your chances of making Team Beretta are pretty good.
Yes, definitely an increased chance.
So, all right. So, people want to get to know who you are because it's pretty exciting when a major gun manufacturer brings you on as a sponsored shooter. So, first and foremost, how long have you been shooting?
So about 2.5 years now. So not that long, but I really went all in. So yeah, I think like the first year I shot 47 matches, 14 majors. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Why did you get into shooting in the first place?
So it was actually my friend Chris Workman. If you guys don't know who he is, Devil's Den Gunworks on Instagram. He was my FFL, and I bought a gun, and he's like, "Hey, you should come to this competition tomorrow." Like super casual about it. I'm like, competition? Like, I don't think I'm ready for that. I've shot like 15 rounds in my life. And he's like, all cool about it. Like, just show up. I was like, okay. And I showed up, and I was terrible. I think I talked about this on another podcast. I was dead last. I think I was like 2% of overall. And I was like, dang, like, I'm going to get really good at this. That was awful. And I kind of did. I just made A class. So getting better. Yeah, but that was kind of my first introduction to it. Everyone was super nice. I didn't have a holster. I didn't have mag pouches. So it was kind of like a free for all when I got to the bats. They're like, who's this girl that showed up with nothing? But everybody pulled together and got me started, and then I just never stopped.
Now, did your family have have guns growing up? I mean, was it something? I mean, or was this? Are you the first person to start shooting competitively in your family? And they're kind of like, well, what are you doing? Because I'm just always curious when people get into shooting, and it's not normally something that what people are thinking they're doing.
Yeah, so my mom and my stepdad were really into hunting, like big game, like Alaska, grizzly bears and that kind of elk and moose and all that. But nothing on the competitive side. That was more rifle, I bought my first pistol when I bought my house. I was 23, and I was in social work. I had a super predictable schedule. I was just kind of like, I should probably have a gun or something to protect myself. But I didn't really, I shot at a target 5 yards away. And then, it was whenever Chris was doing USPSA, and I was kind of like, what's that? And I ordered that gun. Like I said, I ordered a gun, and then I just started there. So no family background. It was just friends that were into it.
What was that gun?
It was a Shadow 2.
Oh, wow. You went all out.
Well, yeah. And I actually went with my cousin's husband to a shooting range just for fun. And orange is my favorite color. And there was this orange gun on the wall. And I'm like, I kind of like that one. And then when I talked to a couple more people, they're like, no, you want the blue one. So yeah, I went all out.
The blue one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. So you picked up a Shadow 2 and you started competing. Now, definitely Shadow 2 is going to help your competition. But how did you make that transition from going Shadow 2 to Beretta? Was there a step in between, or you just went from one metal gun to another?
Straight 2. Yeah.
Okay.
So one of my first classes, I don't know if JJ was my first class. Like I said, I went all in, and there was a JJ class that was in town, and I saw it on Instagram, and I was like, oh, there's one spot left, so I have to get into this. And I'm like, C class, I'm lucky I know which direction, is like downrange at this point. So I'm like, I'm going to go to this class. And JJ had just signed with Beretta. So that like kind of sparked this like, oh, Beretta. So I stayed on the Shadow 2 for a while, and then eventually just transitioned over to the Beretta.
Now, it's an interesting gun. Now, I know from shooting previous Berettas, there was a thing with the reach of the trigger. I'm not 100%. I haven't shot JJ's gun that much. I know it shoots really well, but have they addressed the trigger? I mean, was it hard for you initially? Because the Shadow 2 is pretty easy in terms of grip and trigger pull.
Yeah, so I have pretty big hands, so I've never like felt like I would actually probably be uncomfortable if it was like any shorter, the reach. So I like that. Like I don't mind, and I don't mind double action. Everyone complains about double action on everything. They're like, oh, the first shot. I'm like, it's one shot. I can get better at it.
Sure.
But yeah. So I've never, I don't know that they changed anything, but I run everything stock except for the grip. So, and I changed the recoil spring. So,
did you train with anyone other than JJ?
So I took a class with JJ. I took a class with Travis Tomasi. That was really good. I've taken a class with Justine Williams. That was really awesome too. Who else have I taken? That might be it for classes. Honestly, the more that I got to know, I realized even from JJ's class alone, I still have information that I can go back through and be like, oh, I'm going to work on this. Like there's so much that you get in that 2-day that you have material for literally like over a year. If you really get in the nitty gritty of all of it. But I think you have to, right?
Sure. What was the thing that you walked away with that you remember the most?
From JJ's class? He kind of talked about like if you have a room full of balloons and each balloon is a skill, that you can't really hold up all the balloons at one time. Sometimes you have to kind of focus on this skill for a little bit, and maybe those skills won't suffer, but aren't going to get as much attention. I'm the kind of person that's like, I want to go like 100% at everything that I'm doing. So to keep that in mind, I think is pretty helpful. Just like that. And like the way that he, I don't want to give too much away because you got to take his class, right? But the way that he trains and has like, okay, now we're going to focus on speed. And then now it's going to be more accuracy based, and kind of like how you transition through your training and how to train. I think you can really get that from his class, like what that structure should look like. So.
Yeah, no, I've trained with him, and I totally understand what you're saying. And if you haven't trained with him, people, then you should definitely seek him out. Come to Florida. When you first started, did you feel intimidated? And if I make these comparisons to men and women, I'm not trying to say anything, but I do know it's intimidating for guys to come out and compete. I can only imagine that it's tough for a female to, because it's considered, shooting people. And again, I'll probably get hate mail for this, but it's kind of like a guy thing, but it's not. There's plenty of female shooters. And I've interviewed a bunch of them, Julie Galaba, I love her. So my question is, though, did you feel intimidated? You're starting something new. You're starting this male-dominated sport. Was it tough?
Honestly, I think if anything, it was kind of easier being a woman, because I think that people kind of look at you and they're like, oh, like this girl, she's not going to be able to shoot. It's a woman, and it's kind of like if you like use that to your advantage, there's less pressure, because it's like, okay, either I am not able to shoot that well and people didn't really expect it from me anyways, or I knock it out of the park and they're like, dang, like that girl can really shoot. So I kind of felt the opposite. I think like anyone, male or female, it's intimidating starting something new in front of other people. Like I hate when people are watching me. I actually had to see a sports psychologist when I first started. Like I was so nervous. Yes, I hated it. Like, and if the other squad would catch up to our squad, that was it. Like I was a mess. I'm just like, they all are watching you. It took me a year to watch my first day videos, like my first match videos, because I was so sure that everyone was just all eyes on me. And I watched it a year in, and it's like they're talking, having their own conversations. No one could care less. And it's like the same way I feel now when a new shooter's up and they're nervous. I'm like, no one's watching.
No one's watching. Nobody cares.
No one cares. Yeah.
They got their own BS they're dealing with. But I'm curious. Yes, so you saw a sports psychologist. What did they tell you? I'm curious. What could they possibly tell you?
So we worked on like mindfulness and like I think she called it like walking the dog or something, like the idea that like when your thoughts start to get away from you and you're thinking about everyone behind you, bring it back in. And then working on mindfulness, it's like an activity would be, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, really think about how the bristles feel on your teeth, or like really pay attention to whatever the thing that you're doing is. If you're cutting up your food, like really think about how the knife feels in your hand, and what translates to shooting of like take in all your senses, like really pay attention to not the people behind you, but what's going on for you internally and externally in the stage in front of you, like the feelings that you're having when you have a good stage, and kind of like being mindful about the right things. So that was helpful. It's harder to do than you would think. Like try it when you're brushing your teeth. You'll see. It's like a silly thing, but
I'll do it tonight.
Yeah.
So thinking about that. So when you got up to shoot a stage, you would start to analyze how everything was feeling to you, like the grip of the gun, the way the dirt felt on your feet, things like that, and that would draw you out of worrying about what other people were saying. Is that how that works?
Yeah. So I use my Make Ready to like bring me back to focus, and I'll use like I have my Harrison Sons Ear Pro that I can mute, which I love, because you could hear everyone in the background before. Now so that's like the first thing that signals to me in my body now that like, all right, it's go time. It's like I'm like, all right, guys, bye. And I'll hit my things. I'll do it when I'm on deck or in the hole. And I'll start going over my stage plan. And then when I'm walking up, like as they're clearing the range, that's when I'm like re-going through my stage plan for the last time. And I make sure that my Make Ready is exactly the same every single time. Like I grab from my back mag, I Barney, I drop that mag, I put my third mag in, I check my dot, I do this, I move my feet, like I kind of wiggle them in the same way, but just everything has to feel right. Which I think you kind of have to be a little bit careful with that too, and practice bringing it back in, because sometimes, you're in that zone and then someone, the RO says, stop. Oh, the popper fell, the wind blew. Okay, well now something's different. So now you have to I'll rewind back to, as far as I need to go back in my make ready to feel like, okay, this is good. Check, check, check. Okay, we're good to go. So yeah.
Do you feel that other women have that kind of, I know you're saying new shooters, but I'm always curious on how to bring in more women shooters into the competition sports. Personally, I love teaching women. I'm in law enforcement. I teach new and current officers, but the female shooters were always my favorite students, simply because they didn't have the same type of ego issues that most guys have. They're willing to learn everything. Guys always came in with these predisposed ideas about stuff, and it's just tough to break that down. But I think that in the shooting sports, to attract more women, they need to see more women. And I think it's great that Team Beretta has you and Jessica there, and the other pro teams, all have women on them that are terrific shooters and terrific people, terrific brand ambassadors. And I'm hoping that's getting more women into it. I mean, do you think that's the key, or what else can we do to bring female shooters in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a big thing. And I think just seeing, it's kind of the same reason I'm sure men like it, right? I love shooting on the ladies super squad because it's fun. These girls are my friends on and off the range, So I think having that sense of community, that there's other women doing it, definitely would help. I would hope, I get excited all the time when I see another woman at the range, because we can relate to things in different ways, and we probably have some experiences that are a little different than the guys have, that we can kind of laugh about and kind of bond over. And yeah, in terms of bringing them in, I think, that's what I've heard some women say, oh, I saw you, or I saw Linda or Michelle or Jess Hook or whoever, shooting, and it's oh, if they could do it, I could do it. So yeah, I think that definitely, I hope so.
And I'm not trying to harp on this issue, but I know it's intimidating because it's a shooting sport. It's a combative sport, so to speak, guns. Where do you think we're missing the boat when it comes to, how would you get a friend of yours to come shoot? What would you tell them? Because I'm always thinking to myself, I like to get them to come out and shoot, and they're like, yeah, that's not really me. So how would you sell it? What's the selling point for them?
Male or female, just anyone?
Well, specifically female. It's easy to get a guy to go
female?
shoot. You want to go shoot, and they're going to go like that.
I would say that okay, so once I had a gun, I felt safer in my life, right? I'm oh, I have a gun. If someone tries to hurt me, I have a gun. But now the competence that I have after shooting competitions, I'm yeah, I have a gun and I know how to use it. So I will go anywhere, anytime. Gas station 3 a.m, I'm on a road trip. Yep, I'm fine. Don't even sweat it. Whereas before, it's kind of okay, I have this gun, and, so I think that I would say that, hey, this could really bring you a different sense of peace and safety. I sleep like a baby. And I'll tell you, before I knew how to shoot, I really didn't feel as safe and secure in the world, because it's an equalizer. So I think that's one avenue. It's so fun. It's fun, and I think once you get, it probably is easier for a female to get another female to come to the range. But honestly, a lot of the girls, even at my gym, a lot of the girls will be hey, I'm interested in doing this. Would you mind going sometime? So it's I think that women are interested in it. And I think, yeah, I guess it circles back to seeing other women doing it seems to get them interested.
Okay. So if you're at a club and
there's
you
a
have
lady,
female shooters, try and talk to them, encourage them. Because I definitely see, and I give them tons of credit, at matches, the guys are bringing their girlfriends or their wives along, and they're sitting there and they'll have their book or their iPad or whatever they're doing. They're not shooting. And I always ask them, why don't you let them shoot? And they're like, well, they really don't seem interested. So maybe having more females approach them and showing them, hey, this could be something that can empower you. I hate that word empowering because it sounds so.
No, that's good. It is empowering. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It'll make you feel safer, that you know how to handle a firearm really well.
And it's fun. Like, that's like Cameron Templin shoots for Beretta now, and his wife, Clarissa, all the time. I feel like if you ask her, she'd probably say that, like, the women encouraging her. I always try and go out of my way when I do see, like, a girlfriend or someone's wife or someone or daughter or whoever, like, hey, like, get out of here. Like, you'll have a blast. Like, you can come shoot with me, or you can borrow one of my guns. So yeah, I think like women that are already in the or encouraging it could definitely help, because they're there. You're already here at the range. It's like, you don't really want to sit on the bleachers and watch this, to see your boyfriend shoot for, if he's really good, 10 seconds. If he's not that good, 35. But,
right.
It's like not a whole lot of time and a whole lot of sitting. So yeah.
So what's your practice schedule like?
So right now I'm really gym focused, more so dry fire and gym. But when I think I'll transition probably like mid to late August here, like probably next week I'll start shooting like 200 to 300 rounds a day. I think it was John Vlieger I saw was doing that. And I really like that. It seemed like a good way to build up.
200 to 300 rounds a day? Yeah. That'd probably be a good way to build up.
Oh, I would go out and shoot like 600-700 rounds in a day, like in a session. Like, if I felt like I was getting, and I really won't limit myself if I have the ammo to do it. I won't limit myself. It's like, if I'm having good mindful practice and I'm learning, and it's all data, right? You want to put in the work to figure something out. I might go to the range and be like, okay, how long does it take me to transition from this side of the bay to this side of the bay? And I'll run it, 20 times and write it down. And okay, it takes me, average it about this long to transition. And that would be like if I'm trying to learn my timing on like swingers and, what I can take in between. So training like in terms of amount, I try and touch my guns every day. I feel like it's like, you want it to feel like an extension of your hand, right? Like, I want it to just be so natural. Like, you get into your car every single day and you drive your car and you don't really think about it, but it's because you do it all the time. So I think like, I try and pick it up all the time. I have a gun on my nightstand. I'll lay in bed sometimes. I'm watching TV or on the couch and just play with the trigger just to get the feel of it. And I'm still like, it's going to take me a while to learn the Beretta switching, all the nuances of that. But yeah, in terms of that. And then now, like I said, now I've incorporated the strength training and trying to get strong. So I've kind of used this the last couple weeks here. It's been, 110 every day. So I've used that time to be in the gym twice a day.
You're going to the gym twice a day?
Yes.
Two first?
I'm like a crazy person. Yes. Like,
so
I was thinking.
So what are you doing in the gym? I'm very curious.
So I got a personal trainer, Marcos. He's awesome. And I mean, when I went there, I was like so skinny and just kind of weak. Like, I think it's Eddie Garcia is like, what do you mean you can't hold a gun up for 15 seconds? And I'm like, yeah, but not really. Like, not a heavy gun with loaded mags and like really keep it out the whole stage. And, I kind of started looking at the people that are really dominating in the sport. I'm like, okay, well, like, how do they move? Or like, what is their fitness routine like? So we started doing like just like basic stuff and strength training. And I put on like 11 pounds in 3 months of muscle. So I'm like, yeah, he's a great trainer. So that I'm hoping to see like major returns with that so that my legs are a little bit more stable. I noticed that like coming into position, I was kind of like a baby giraffe, like not getting stable and wasting a lot of time. And now it's like 1 foot down.
Oh,
and the other, I lost it.
Very exciting. Yeah.
got too excited. Yeah. So, just being stable, coming into positions, being able to have that gun out the whole stage. So that's been a big focus. And I'm kind of trying to fast track it with the 2-a-days, just while I'm not on the range as much.
2 lifting sessions?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I'll do cardio, but yeah. And like going crazy. But
were you always a fitness person?
No, years ago. And then I didn't work out for like forever. Like, yeah. It was, so not really at all. But one day I was like, okay, I keep hearing this from people. Like Aaron Eddins was always saying it, like, okay, like do this. And like my friend Dustin, like, oh, if you put on 10 pounds, like you could really be dominating. And I'm like, okay, like I keep hearing this. So maybe I should just try that with all these people that are better than me. If they're saying it, then probably warranted. And then it's like, yeah, I just kind of got sick of like not feeling strong. And now, totally different. Now it's a habit, right? Now it's something that I'm like, I can't skip my second time today. Like, that's crazy. So
I don't know if I asked you this. What do you do professionally? What's your employment?
So I'm just shooting now.
Really?
Yeah.
Congrats. Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
So how did the whole sponsorship with Beretta come about?
So I took the class with JJ, and then, I was friends with Jess Hook, and Jess invited me to a women's clothing event with Beretta. And they were designing women's shooting clothing. And there, that's like where I met Linda Turnbull, who's become one of my best friends. I see her like every day. And, a couple other ladies there, and just in the shooting sport. And each time I'd go to these matches, Jess would be doing something with Beretta. Like, hey, do you want to come to dinner? Or do you want to come to this? Of course. And I really got to know, the people that work there and the company and the culture over the last like year and a half. So like it kind of started with that, like building that relationship there. And just really like fit, I guess, with that group, and, seemed like a good fit.
So then they approached you, or how did that happen?
So there was like talk about like a possibility of it in the future at some point. And then the ladies' clothing line, I think, what happened? So we gave some feedback for the ladies' clothing line. And when I got my package from them, I got it, and I was kind of like, okay, like, did they really care? Like, it seemed like everyone really cared, but like, big companies, like, what, like, how much pull do these people, like, I could tell the people that were working on the project really cared, but how much pull do they really have? Like, how much is Beretta really going to give them and let them, do that we're asking for? And there was this one little thing that was in the pocket that I was like, I want to see if it's there. And I pulled it out, and it was there. And I was like, they listened. It was a lens wipe. But I know it sounds so silly, right? It was like this thing that like we talked about in the when you get together and everyone's giving the feedback and the ideas. And I was like, okay. And like just the little details in some of the clothing items that they added that we had talked about, I was like, wow, like they really care. They really listen. And I got in touch. I was looking for a shotgun, and I got in touch with Amanda, who does the team stuff there. And I asked her opinion on a shotgun, and I went and I bought the shotgun, and she's like, hey, have you thought about joining Team Beretta? So I think like, already using the products, already wanting, already thinking that the brand is good enough to be what I want to be using. I think that probably helped open some of those doors too. But networking and, getting to know people in the industry and seeing where you're a good fit at, that was definitely, like I said, it was a long process. Like it was a long, I don't think I even knew or maybe they even knew that that's what we were doing, but just getting to know them there. So that's kind of how that just kind of happened, you know, like we were friends for a long time, and then, you know.
So do they fly you out to like Italy or something to meet the corporate people, or were they already out here?
Not to Italy, but I mean, like I had been to at the NRA show, there was a Beretta exclusive range day event. So I met like all the people from Beretta Italy and went to dinners with them, and, you know, just getting to know everyone over the last year at all these different events. So we did the ladies photo shoot for the clothing. And, you know, like each time you go to these events, you go out to eat and hang out with everyone. Like it's a blast. So
you made the commitment to shoot the Beretta. So what does
yes.
Your sponsorship entail? What do you have to do as a sponsored shooter?
I mean, just being like a good brand ambassador, right? I'll go to NRA show and you know, meet with people there. SHOT Show. Jess Hook and I just went to Dallas to the Beretta gallery for the ladies clothing drop, and we're on a panel, and, you know, like people came in and asked about the clothing, asked questions about shooting. So kind of just spreading awareness, being an ambassador. I'll shoot, you know, major matches for Beretta, like nationals and IDPA. You know, so you're representing them there. Yeah, whenever they need me for something, they'll fly me there, and I'll be there. So
that's very cool. Now, I know you had some issues when you first started with people watching you and whatnot. Now that you're a sponsored shooter, how does that feel when you're up on Make Ready, that everyone knows that, oh, here's the Team Beretta girl?
I feel like not anything really changed, because it was like already the people that I was already shooting with, you know, and like they already know how I am and like, you know, my ways, and I still get a little anxious sometimes, but I don't think it's really affected anything any more or less. With that, maybe a little bit more pressure, like people expect you to be better, but I'm like, I'm a try hard. I'm going to try my best anyway. So, you know, it is what it is, but it's going to be my best. So yeah, not that different.
Okay. That's fair enough. Do you recommend people seek out sponsorships like you did, or?
Yeah, I think that if you like want something, like that's like something that Lynn and I were talking about today. Like anything that you want, like it's like people won't know that you want it unless you say you want it, right? So if you have a connection or you networked and met someone that works for your company, hey, I'm really passionate about this brand. Like, are you guys looking for anyone to, you know, to represent you? Yeah, I think that's definitely. I went to the Gundies this year. It's like an influencer thing, and I'm not an influencer, right? Like these are people with like 100,000 followers. But I like emailed the guy and was like, hey, this looks really fun. Like you guys are shooting rockets out of a tank. Like, can I come to this? And they're like, yeah, come on, send me an invite. So like we flew to Texas for that. So yeah, I definitely think there's power in, you know, ask and you shall receive.
So you do have a very active Instagram. I mean, you're posting a lot of your shooting matches and stuff like that. Are you, or do you think people should be posting a lot all the time what they're doing in order to generate, you know, some kind of interest in them, or showing that like this is what I could be giving you as a shooter when, you know, you approach? Because I know a lot of people, it really hasn't changed in all these years. People really want to get sponsored because they like to have that on their bicycle jerseys that have all these different things on it, because the more stuff you have on it, probably the better shooter you are, right? So that's how it works, I think. So, I mean, is that the key? Is to get a lot of Instagram, the gram? I
would say that I think that mine might have held me back a little bit. Like there was one time I was out and like one of the guys that was a little higher at Beretta was like, oh, I heard you're working on growing your account. And I'm like best I can do are videos in the back of my head shooting stages. I'm like not like, I dread trying to make content which is another thing that I think Beretta and I work so well, is because they know the content that I put out and they are happy with, I'm genuine. I'm not going to make any cool edits. Like, I don't even barely know how to use a filter, like I'll put the music on it or do something, talk about the stage. But yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. Like, if I wasn't shooting for Beretta and I had, it depends on what your goals are, right? Like, I care about being a good shooter, and I think Beretta cares that I care about being a good shooter. Now, if you want free stuff and you want to test different products, if I were looking for different things, I would say the best way would be like review guns. Be honest and knowledgeable in your review of guns. And I bet you could grow an account like crazy, like the gun tubers, So I think sponsorships in that sense of like product, yeah, definitely that. But I know that like having a big following, people are advertising, so they'll pay people to advertise. Yeah, so I guess it depends on your goals. But yeah.
So tell me, what was your, if you can recall, what was your best match and stage that you did that you just walked away from feeling that was the best thing I've done?
My best match was probably Spring Steel this year. I got 10th for carry optics, and I was like, that's like what I wanted. It was top 10 for carry optics. Yuma Classic was pretty good. Justine helped me like a ton at that match. My stage planning's not great, so I'm like, Justine, can I just copy everything that you do? And she's like, of course. So yeah, but Spring Steel was definitely like a high point for me. I beat some of the guys that I was like really gunning for, and that's always like, I don't know, that feels good,
Who are you gunning for?
Oh, I don't want to call them out.
You know what? You don't want to call them out? Okay. No, that's okay. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know what? Your internal, you're gunning for. Okay.
Oh, I mean, no, they know. They know. I'm just.
They know.
Yeah. Oh, they know. They know. I'm always. Or like Zach Fisher, one of the guys at Loco. I'm always like Zach. I like. His girlfriend Brittany's great too. I'm like, and he's been working on their house a lot. I'm like, I'm gonna start showing Brittany all like extra Pinterest stuff to get you back working in the house and not shooting anymore because I want to beat you. But if it feels good when like someone you're like kind of going back and forth, and I find that super motivating.
So when you said that you took 10th in carry optics, what do you think that you did that worked so well for you that day, or was it that other people did bad?
No, so I really had good stage plans. Like I knew my stage plans. I walked up to every stage and I was like, I don't have to spend any time thinking about this. I've walked it so many times in the day before and went over it laying in bed 100 times that like I could see the stages in my head. That was something Brennan Conaway told me to do 2 years ago. It was like, like you should be able to visualize every single target and every single partial. Like you should know that this no shoot partial, there's this much space or this much space. Like you should have such a small spot on that target. So I think that was probably the biggest thing, is like I knew exactly where I needed to transition to every single target. And yeah, so it was good.
How are you preparing for matches? I know you like to shoot 200-300 rounds a day, but what is your process to prepare for one of these big matches?
So this is something I got from Aaron Eddins, is, like printing the match book out and kind of picking different unique things you might see. Like, let's say there's a lot of low ports. Okay, well, I'm going to set up like kind of what I'm going to see at the match. But you're kind of making like a Frankenstein stage of like all the different things that you'll see. So maybe there's a low port on this stage, but there's really hard lean to the right on this stage. So I'm setting up this big monster stage that it's like, okay, I can stop at position A, B, and E, and that'll be like one stage that I'll run in practice. Or I can stop at B, C, D, and that'll be another section of practice. But you're getting to practice all those different things that you're going to see at the major. So that's super helpful. And then really being in tune with your gun, knowing like movers, like knowing like when you break the shot, like how long, I'm sure there's more science to it than I understand or, I can get into, but it's like you kind of get used to the feeling or for what your sights look like shooting really hard, far hard shots. And doing a little harder and further than what you're actually going to see. That way, everything looks easy when you get to the major.
Sure.
So, yeah.
With all this, the sponsorship and the practice that you're doing and the 2 workouts that you do daily, what do you do for your downtime?
I mean, like, that's kind of like, I feel like that. I've like got into video games recently.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know, kind of nerdy. I like to read and do a ton of puzzles and like brain games and stuff on my phone. I've heard that it can like help your visual processing speed and, your mental processing.
So there's always something like, coming back to shooting.
Yeah. Yes. But that's like the fun thing about it, right? Is like I feel like I found all these things that are good for me that help me with shooting. So it's like I love doing puzzles. I love like even like physical puzzles or like chess or like anything like that. I just love doing all that stuff. So anything that I can relate back to shooting, it's like guilt-free, anything that's like good for me, that's good for shooting is like a win-win. But yeah.
I'm curious, did you ever think that you'd be in this position that you're in right now?
No. Well, 2 years, I mean, I was like, when I started, I was like, I'm going to figure out, I hate to say this. I was kind of, okay, to speak candidly, I looked at it and I was like, okay, the ceiling for female shootings is a little bit lower than it is for men. I really love doing this. I think I can make this happen. Like, I think I can make something happen for me. If I love it. I care about it. I care about getting good at it. And I feel like if I just keep caring about that and keep working hard, someone will notice. Kind of like how I've always done everything in my life and it usually plays out, and it did. So.
No, I was going to ask you, is that how you normally are?
Yeah.
Is that how you?
I get like obsessed with things. Yeah.
Okay.
Like.
No, I mean, because I guess if you put yourself out there, that's the whole thing they always say is that you put yourself out there, the opportunities, you're kind of basically making the opportunity for yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't put yourself
100%.
out there, it's never going to happen. So by you doing this, you kind of knew. But now you've kind of become like a role model.
Yeah.
I know you've mentioned so many people that you look up to, but I can tell that, and I can read here, a lot of people look up to you. Is that a role that you're comfortable with?
I mean, I definitely I love that. I want to inspire people and get people excited about it. It can be intimidating, like we talked about. So when I get messages from women that are like, hey, like I went to my first match, like this is awesome. And like being able to relate to that, I think is cool. But yeah, I think that's awesome. Just like you said, though, just showing up though is like going to get you opportunities, I think. Networking, being friendly, talking to people, going, like, you got to kind of, I invested in it though, too. Like 14 major matches is no joke. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of money. I spent every single weekend the first year. Like, I did not miss a weekend. And I would shoot sometimes 2 matches a weekend, driving 2 hours I lived in Georgia at the time, but driving 2 hours to Dothan or driving, to closer to Atlanta, just always going to matches. And, I've lived in Georgia, I lived in California, and now Arizona. So I've lived in like major shooting areas and gotten to know communities and traveled all over and gotten to know so many people, which, like I said, that's like, like we said, just showing up and getting to know people. I think opportunities come that way a lot of times. So.
Which do you like better, IDPA or USPSA? Because you mentioned that you're shooting IDPA.
USPSA.
Okay.
IDPA is hard though. IDPA is hard.
In which sense?
Well, for me, I'm like, okay, I got to count these rounds and I can't have makeup. Like USPSA, I'm like kind of getting more comfortable with taking more makeup. And that was kind of like I shooting with Justine. I'm like, dang, that girl's really not afraid to throw a makeup. Like, you know, it's not going to really hurt anything. She's so fast. But with the IDPA, it's like if you drop mags with rounds in it, it's a penalty, right? So it's like, okay, 1, 2. It's like more like reactive shooting versus like USPSA. You can be like more of the predictive shooting. So you got to plan it a little more. Be a little more cognizant. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? What's the plan?
So I would love to make the world shoot team. I try and be realistic. After like my nationals performance this year, and I just switched to the Beretta, and it was just, I think I got in my head a little bit about shooting a different gun and it feeling a little bit different. So I'll have like, I think 4 more matches to try and make sure my scores are adequate to make that team. I think that would be awesome. But really it's just mastering, you know, the art of shooting a pistol. Like I'm going to make Grandmaster one day, slow and steady. I've had a good, solid, slow, steady, upward pace with shooting. And that's like my big thing. It's like, I really just want to master shooting, you know, like all the nuances and all the manipulations and just, you know, be crazy good with a gun.
No, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you feel better with having a gun around. I can't imagine your competition gun is your carry gun. Do you have a carry gun?
I do. So I have a G43, but I'll probably swap over to, I want the Beretta Cheetah, actually. Have you shot that yet?
Yes, I've shot a Cheetah. It's an interesting gun.
I love it. The new one, I love it. I feel like objectively speaking, 380s are not pleasurable to shoot, but that gun is like, and I'm not just saying that because I shoot for Beretta. I'm really not, but I love it. Like we shot it at the SHOT Show, the range day, like, and it holds like 13 rounds. Because I had a Sig P238 that I bought. I like got it in my head years ago that I was gonna walk around with a leg holster at work and like dresses. So I got this like cute little gun, but it holds like 5 rounds. I'm like, what are we gonna do with this? Like, and at that time, probably miss. Like, if anything ever happened, I probably would have missed every shot. So yeah,
maybe someone in Beretta's listening, you know, tomorrow in FedEx, there could be something at your door.
That's right.
So, okay. Well, before we wrap it up, I know there was just a couple of questions that some people have posted. Let's see here. Steve Mills wants to know if you're going to be seen this year at PCC Nationals.
I will not be shooting PCC Nationals. I'm going to focus on carry optic, not really shooting open or PCC right now. So no, I will not be there.
Do you shoot PCC?
I shot PCC Nationals last year. It was not a good time.
Okay.
I'll probably like play with it a little bit. I really like my gun. I have the Terran Tactical TR9. It's it was really easy to shoot, really enjoyable to shoot. And, you know, Lynn lives out here and she shoots PCC a lot. So I'll probably get into it a little bit more, but my heart's really with pistol, you know, honestly. Like I'll eventually try and master other guns, but like, you know, I'm A-class now. I want to just keep moving up. So
yeah, it could be tough to try and master shotgun and PCC and carry optics and limited and all these different things when you can just focus on just one thing. And then surprisingly, you know, once you get that one thing, the rest of it comes easier because you've already done it.
Yes.
You know the speeds that you need to be shooting at.
Yes.
Are you a Ria Salado person? Is that your range?
Yes, that's my home range.
That's the mecca of shooting. So yeah, that's a good place to be. A lot of good shooters are there.
There are. There's a lot of shooters, period. Like there's like 100 people at every single match. Yeah, it's crazy.
And they have matches like almost every day.
Oh, you can shoot a match pretty much every day between here and like Ben Avery and Cowtown and Phoenix Rod and Gun Club. Yeah, you can shoot within like an hour or so. That's why I moved here. is to have that. Prescott, Payson. I mean, those are a little further, like 2 hours, but I mean, it's, yeah.
Yeah, but then
That's
you
the
didn't
way to get
realize
good.
you didn't realize that how hot it was going to be in these crazy summers. That's a dry heat. I'm here in a humid heat. That's a dry heat. It's like an
I
oven.
feel like both dry. I feel like humid's a little worse. Like I lived in Georgia and it was like, but it's hot. Like I don't think it's good for you to be in the middle of the desert in 115 degrees just baking. Like I don't know.
So that does bring up
Not
another question. How do you practice? Someone's asking, how do you practice in 110-degree weather?
You go early. Like if you line up at the gate, I'm serious. Like, and it's still 100 degrees, but you go early, and it's just hot. Like drink a ton of water, but it's uncomfortable. But there will be a line of people waiting because no one wants to shoot midday. And you get like a tent too. There's like overhangs at most of the bays, and you can kind of try and set something up, but it's not that fun. So people will complain like about it being winter, like, oh, like I didn't get to do all this practice, because it was snowing here. And it's like, well, okay, it's 120 degree. I'm not going out there right now. So dry fire, just like if it was cold out.
What's your relationship dry fire to live fire?
I feel like the better I've gotten, the more appreciation I have for dry fire and the more I dry fire. Like I used to hate it because I don't think I really understood. It was like I was just kind of like pointing this gun around at stuff. And now that I know the amount of pressure and what my grip needs to feel like and what I need to see, like to mitigate the recoil, and I really know what that feels like, I can replicate that in dry fire. So now I can appreciate dry fire, if that makes sense. So now, like, I think my dry fires, like right now, as of today, 100%, my dry fire has been more than live fire recently. But like I said, like mid-August, it's going to get ramped back up and probably be more live. But yeah, so I leave my belt stuff on the counter wherever. I leave guns everywhere and just pick one up, and, they're all the same. I have like 4 of the same. So just leave one everywhere and just play with it all the time and dry fire all the time.
Awesome. So if people want to reach out to you and ask you questions, the best way to do that is what?
Instagram. Yeah, for sure.
Your full metal Jess?
Full Metal Jessie. Yep. JESSY. And I think I'm shadow banned, so like I don't know. You should search the whole thing.
Why are you shadow banned?
I feel like anyone with gun stuff. But I've had like friends be like, "Why did you block me?" And I'm like, "I didn't block you." And they're like, "I type your whole name and nothing comes up." I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. But I don't know. Probably post some anti-government meme or something. Like get
all right. So what I'll do is for sure I'll link your Instagram profile with all this stuff. So if people listening to this who already aren't following you, they can reach out and say hi and ask questions. But I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's and congratulations on your sponsorship and all the good stuff that you're doing. Very positive. But again, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Okay, great. Good night, everybody.
All right. Bye.